Welcome to the Courtroom Club. If you own a unit in a sectional title scheme here in South Africa, well, you're definitely familiar with levies. They're sort of the bedrock of community living, aren't they?
They are, but they also cause, let's be honest, a lot of headaches. Confusion, too.
Yeah, sometimes even real hostility. So today we're cracking open the financial books to tackle what seems to be the most confusing part, those extra payments that suddenly appear.
Right. And our mission, really, for this deep dive is simple. We want to give you absolute clarity. We're going to draw a very clear line between special levies and reserve fund contributions.
Okay.
Both are part of the Sectional Titles Schemes Management Act, the STSMA, but honestly, they serve completely different purposes.
And getting them mixed up is bad news.
It's more than just bad bookkeeping. It's often the root cause of, well, almost every major financial fight we see in schemes.
Okay, so before we maybe get too lost in the details of the act, let's give everyone that key takeaway up front, like the one-sentence rule. Think of the administrative levy, your normal monthly one, as your scheme's day-to-day grocery budget. Okay, now if we stick with that, the special levy, that's like the emergency plumber bill after a pipe burst. Unexpected.
Exactly. And crucially, the reserve fund contribution, that's the planned savings you're putting away, for replacing the fridge or the stove down the line, purposefully.
Right.
So, special levies, they're reactive, once-off, urgent charges for surprises. Reserve fund contributions, they're proactive. Ongoing required payments for planned future maintenance. That difference is, well, it's everything.
Let's maybe start with why it's so confusing, though. I mean, both just look like extra charges on your statement, right? On top of the regular admin levy.
And that's the nub of it. When an owner sees that extra amount, the first thought is often, what's this? Are the trustees messing up? Are they overcharging us?
Yeah, that skepticism pops up immediately.
And look, sometimes that skepticism is fair, which is exactly why clarity is so vital. It's about transparency. Trustees, managing agents, they have to be able to explain clearly what every rand is for.
Because they differ in key ways.
Fundamentally, the timing is different, the purpose is completely different, and the legal process for approving them is different too. Understanding that is how you, as an owner, can hold the scheme accountable.
Okay, let's unpack the one that usually causes the most anxiety. The special levy. We often call it the financial tool of last resort, right?
And it really should be treated that way. Legally, it's defined as a once-off charge. It's raised specifically to cover something unexpected, urgent, or simply not budgeted for.
And it can't wait.
It absolutely cannot wait until the next AGM or the next budget cycle. The key word is immediate necessity.
Could you give us some concrete examples, like when is this actually justified?
Sure. Think dramatic stuff, usually. Emergency roof repairs after a massive storm. Or the main elevator suddenly fails completely and needs immediate replacement. People can't access their floors.
Right, essential services.
Exactly. Or maybe a safety issue. The municipality might issue a notice demanding urgent structural repairs that just weren't anticipated. These are things that are sudden, often very expensive, and you just can't delay them for months.
And the trustees can just decide this. Without needing all the owners to vote, that feels like quite a bit of power.
It is a significant amount of power, yes. And it comes with strict rules. Section 3 of the STSM Act gives trustees that authority, but only if the expense is genuinely immediate and cannot be put off.
And there are checks.
Absolutely. Crucially, the decision must be documented. It has to be in a formal trustee resolution, clearly explaining why it's urgent, why it's needed now, and importantly, why the reserve fund can't cover it.
Okay.
Using this power for costs that should have been foreseen, well, that's where abuse can creep in.
Okay, let's hit that really critical point now. The one that causes so much trouble, especially when units are sold, the payment rule. Who actually pays the special levy?
This is possibly the single most vital piece of information, especially if you're thinking of selling your unit. The rule is all registered owners, as of the date the special levy is formally raised, meaning when that resolution is passed, they are liable for the full amount.
The full amount, even if it's being paid off in installments over, say, 6 months or a year.
Absolutely, regardless of the payment plan. We see this constantly. A seller thinks, okay, it's paid over 12 months. I'll pay my share while I'm here. The buyer will pick up the rest. That's wrong.
So the liability doesn't transfer with the property?
No. The liability for the entire total sum of that special levy stays with the person who owned the unit on the day the resolution was passed. You could sell, move out, and still be legally on the hook for those remaining installments months later.
Wow.
It's a crucial detail. It trips up so many sellers, particularly in private sales. It absolutely must be sorted out clearly in the sale agreement by the conveyancer.
That is incredibly important to flag. But let me play devil's advocate slightly. What if a scheme seems to need a special levy every single year? Or, every 18 months? Doesn't that suggest something's wrong?
That's a very valid point, and it's often a sign of friction. If trustees keep raising special levies for costs that were, frankly, predictable, like routine painting every 5 or 7 years, it points towards poor financial management.
So it shouldn't be used for predictable stuff.
Definitely not. Special levies aren't meant to patch up holes left by bad budgeting or, critically, the failure to build up that reserve fund properly. Owners have every right in those cases to challenge whether the levy was truly necessary and followed the rules. They can argue the cost should have been planned for.
Okay, that leads us perfectly into the other side of this coin, the proactive part, the reserve fund contributions.
Exactly. The mechanism designed specifically to avoid those financial shocks. These are the planned, ongoing payments. Their whole purpose is to build up a healthy savings pot, specifically for future major capital expenses.
And this isn't just good practice, it's legally required.
It's absolutely a legal mandate. Section 2 of the STSM Act makes it compulsory. Schemes must have a 10-year maintenance, repair, and replacement plan. They have to estimate the costs for those big projects down the line and then contribute regularly so the money's actually there when needed.
And the Act is quite specific about how that money is kept.
Extremely specific. The reserve fund must be kept separate from the administrative fund, the day-to-day running costs account.
So you can't dip into it for gardening services or cleaning.
No, you can't. It's ring-fenced. Its purpose is solely for those major planned replacements and repairs. Think of it as the long-term capital investment fund for the building itself.
Give us some typical examples of what that reserve fund is actually meant for.
Okay, think about the big, predictable stuff. Repainting the entire complex exterior, which can cost a fortune and needs doing every, say, 7 to 10 years.
Right.
Major waterproofing projects.
Right.
Replacing lifts when they reach the end of their lifespan. Replacing communal security gates, pumps, maybe even entire roofs after 20 or 30 years. Significant refurbishment projects. These are things you can and absolutely must plan for.
And beyond just following the law, why is having a healthy reserve fund so important for an individual owner's investment?
Well, it creates financial stability for the whole scheme, and that directly affects how the market sees your property. Prospective buyers, or more likely their conveyancers, are looking much more closely at scheme financials these days.
So a healthy reserve fund is a good sign.
It's a huge green flag. If they see a scheme that's properly funded its future maintenance liabilities through the reserve fund, that scheme looks like a much lower risk. It means the scheme probably won't need to suddenly hit owners with massive special levies for predictable work.
Which protects property values.
Exactly. It protects your investment value and keeps the scheme desirable and financially sound for the long haul.
Okay, let's dig into some slightly trickier situations now. Can a body corporate, maybe if they're in a bit of a tight spot financially, raise both a special levy and increase the reserve fund contribution at the same time?
Yes, they can. It might seem strange, but because the purposes are totally distinct, it's perfectly possible.
How would that work?
Okay, imagine a bad storm damages the roof significantly. That needs immediate fixing. That's your urgent special levy, right?
Makes sense.
But at the same time, maybe doing the 10-year plan review, the trustees realize their ongoing reserve fund contributions have been too low all along to cover future painting and lift replacement. So they might also need to legally increase the regular reserve fund levy going forward to meet those long-term plan requirements. One levy is reactive for the emergency, the other is a mandatory adjustment for future plan savings.
Right. Got it. What about more aggressive tactics? We sometimes hear about bodies corporate trying to charge owners for several years' worth of levies up front just to build up funds quickly. Is that allowed?
That's a common question, and it can be legally problematic. Look, planning ahead is good, financial prudence is encouraged. But the STSM Act generally implies that levies raised should be reasonably necessary for costs within the current financial year, or maybe the upcoming one outlined in the budget.
So grabbing 3 or 4 years' worth might be pushing it.
It very likely is. If trustees try to collect huge sums way in advance, holding excessive cash that isn't needed for immediate or budgeted upcoming expenses, owners can challenge that. They could argue it's unfair, potentially unreasonable, and doesn't align with the Act's principle of necessity. The scheme isn't supposed to act like a bank, just hoarding owner funds indefinitely.
Okay, going back to property sales for a moment. We know the seller is stuck with the full special levy bill if it was raised before they sold. What about the reserve fund money they paid in over the years? Do they get any of that back when they sell?
No, they don't. That money stays with the scheme. It's part of the collective savings pool for the benefit of the entire body corporate.
Why is that?
Because those contributions were made towards the long-term upkeep of the asset, which the new owner will now benefit from. It's tied to the property, not the person. The only thing that usually it's adjusted between buyer and seller is any prepaid portion of the regular administrative levy for the month of transfer. That's typically handled by the conveyancer.
Right, that makes sense. Okay, finally, let's empower the owner. If you genuinely believe a levy, whether it's special, reserve, or even admin, has been raised unfairly, maybe illegally, or the procedures weren't followed, what specific steps should you take?
Okay, first step is always demand the documents. You need to request the formal trustee resolution that authorized the levy. Ask for the minutes of the meeting where it was decided.
What are you looking for?
You're checking if they followed the proper procedure. Was there a quorum? Was the resolution clear? For a special levy, is the urgency properly motivated? Crucially, check if the expense was maybe already covered somewhere else, like in the admin budget.
You mean like double dipping?
Exactly. If it looks like they're funding the same thing from two different pots or raising a special levy for something already budgeted, that's a major red flag. It's just either poor management or something potentially improper.
And what if the trustees or the managing agent just ignore you or refuse to provide the information?
Then you escalate. Your next step is to formally lodge a dispute with the Community Schemes Ombud Service. That's CSOS.
The Ombud Service?
Yes, the Community Schemes Ombud Service. It was set up specifically under the Act to handle these kinds of internal disputes and schemes. Your case needs to be based on a specific complaint, like they didn't follow the correct procedure, the levy wasn't actually necessary according to the Act, or it's inconsistent with the approved budgets or maintenance plan.
So just disagreeing with the amount isn't enough?
Generally, no. You need to show that the decision itself was flawed, unlawful, or procedurally incorrect according to the STSMA and the scheme's rules.
It really comes down to knowing these rules to protect yourself financially, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We always emphasize that frequent, large special levies can be a warning sign. They can signal financial instability in a scheme, and honestly, they put off knowledgeable buyers. Well-managed scheme that relies on its properly funded reserve fund. That looks like a stable, solid investment.
So wrapping this up, let's just hammer home that core difference one last time. Special levies. Think reactive emergencies. Urgent, unforeseen, once off.
Correct. And reserve fund contributions. Think proactive savings.
Yeah.
Ongoing, legally required, and for planned future maintenance.
Understanding the specific legal reasons behind each type of payment is really key for owners, isn't it? To ensure things are fair and transparent.
It's essential. The main takeaway for every owner listening should be, look beyond just the shock of an extra payment. Ask the questions, check the procedure, ensure the trustees are acting compliantly.
Knowledge really is your best defense here. And if you find yourself struggling to understand your scheme's finances, or you need clear advice on whether levies are lawful and being applied correctly, getting professional property law guidance is definitely the smartest move to safeguard your investment.
Thank you for joining us in the Courtroom Club. We really hope this deep dive has helped clarify the path towards better sectional title scheme management for you.